I'll introduce this section by telling you a quick story of, again, a nice group of students that I met in Swindon about 4 or 5 years ago. And as we were talking about this, one student said, look, now that I'm training to be a teacher, I've got to be careful about, what I do in my private life. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, why? He said, well, when I was doing my degree, I did a degree in maths in Bristol, and to be honest with you, I like drinking, so I was always out. If I had money, I'd be going to the pub every night. At weekends, I'd be going pubbing and clubbing, and sometimes I'd come home really legless and, sometimes out my face. He said, I can't do that now. I'm in a small town outside of Swindon, and sometimes I even see my year 11s and 12s in the pub. And, I couldn't be seen coming home, staggering home from a late night in a club or a pub with the small community in the school near the school where I work. And another guy on the table said, well, why don't you make sure that you socialize well away from your workplace? Keep your private life private, which is very good advice, actually. And he said, look, you're not a teacher 24 hours a day. It's a hard job. You're going to need to keep a balance in your private and your professional life, and you're going to need to let off steam sometimes and, just have a good time. You're a young person. Socialize well away from where you work if you can. Now that is, as I say, very good advice. But then he went on, rather interestingly, I thought, because he said, look, I don't drink a lot, but I do like to smoke a little bit of weed sometimes, and I do that in the privacy of my own home. Sometimes with friends, sometimes I'm alone, he said, but nobody knows about it. No, most people don't even know that I smoke weed. I just do it in private, and I don't see what the problem is there. I'm not selling drugs to the kids. I just like smoking a bit of weed to relax at the weekend. And if I'm a good teacher, I don't see why that's got to do with anybody else. And another student on his group on the table said, well, of course it has. Of course it's got something to do with other people. And he said, how? Why? I don't understand why. And she said, it's illegal, you idiot. Don't you realize smoking weed is illegal? And he actually had a very interesting comeback to her. He said, what, have you never done anything wrong? Never. Have you never, driven down the motorway at 80 or 90 miles an hour? Have you never jumped an amber light? Have you never parked on a double yellow line? Have you never paid off your car mechanic in cash to avoid the VAT? I felt a bit nervous about that myself when he said it, but never mind. He's got a fantastic challenge to us all, hasn't he? Because what he's saying is, if I'm a good teacher, what I do in my private life is none of your business. Thank you very much. Now, what I'd like to do is for you to look at some of these issues that you'll see on screen now. Does it matter if you do these things, as long as you're a good teacher? And you can consider each one of those scenarios in turn. Now, I hope you've had time to discuss those with some other people, because actually that will bring out a lot of interesting angles. But if you haven't and you've just had time to reflect on them, let's unpick one or two and just see where the kind of various dimensions of these things are. Lots of people, when I do these sessions, will say, well, look at speeding, or look at getting drunk in pubs and clubs at weekends. That, everybody speeds a little bit, don't they? Everybody gets drunk. And if I give time to that, I'll soon find out that half the audience never get drunk. In fact, half the audience might be teetotal. And not for religious reasons either, they just don't like alcohol. And other people will say, no, I never speed. I never speed on the motorway. And so what we mustn't do is assume that we know what other people's values are and other people's behaviors. We don't. And so we can't assume that people behave in a certain way. But sometimes the one about, downloading or streaming adult pornography on a home computer, that is quite an issue for some people, in the sense that, some people will say that's disgraceful, that demeans women, that's something that teachers shouldn't do. And if we've got enough time in the audience, actually we'll find out that many women view adult pornography as well. In fact, apparently, though I don't, can't verify this, but I've actually read that research shows that somewhere between 30 and 40% of women view adult pornography. So we can't assume what people's values are. Though it's an interesting question. Whose business is it? If you are viewing adult pornography on a home computer, whose business is that? Well, the answer to that is nobody's business. It's no one's business. And it certainly does not define you as a teacher in any way. That's a private behavior, isn't it? And you might think, well, I don't like it. It demeans women. I don't approve of it. I wouldn't like the teacher of my 6-year-old to be going home every night and viewing adult pornography. That's your morality speaking, and you're entitled to your morality. Of course you are. You're not entitled to impose it on other people, and you're not entitled to extrapolate your morality into an ethical issue. It's not an ethical issue for teachers if they're viewing adult pornography, which is legal, on a home computer. However, if that teacher was stupid enough to take their laptop into school where they've downloaded adult pornography, and by some reckless omission, the pupils have viewed it or their colleagues have viewed it, that may be a legitimate disciplinary issue, mightn't it? But keep in mind these distinctions between legal, ethical, and moral. And finally, the one about whether teachers can be members of extreme political parties. That's a very interesting one as well, isn't it? Because some students will say to me, that's not compatible with the teacher standards. Look at the teacher standards, it says we must show tolerance and respect for our pupils. And if you're a member of a racist or a bigoted party, then you cannot show that respect. Now, I want you to think about that. Whether you can leave your political opinions at the school gate and come in and operate by professional standards. And I used to think that that was, well, it still is a grey area, but I had a very instructive lesson one day when I was working for the General Teaching Council. We had to go to a disciplinary hearing in the West Midlands at a local authority that had suspended a teacher for standing as a candidate for the British National Party. And when we went along, we said, can you explain the issues to us about this teacher? And the local authority official was quite annoyed with us, actually. He said, well, what do you think the issues are? We can't have a racist teacher teaching in a borough like this, very multicultural, multi-ethnic borough. And I said, well, okay, is the teacher alleged to have expressed racist, prejudicial attitudes and views? And he said, no, actually, we're shocked. This teacher's been working in the borough for, 20 years, and he's got fantastic relationships with all students, parents, and colleagues of all backgrounds. We're totally shocked that he's prepared to stand for the BNP. So I said, there's no evidence that he's shown bigoted attitudes or racist behavior? And the guy said, no. So I said, okay. Is he a poor teacher? Is he hopeless at his job? Is he incompetent? He said, no, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant maths and physics teacher. He teaches A-level. So our response to this situation was, well, I'm sorry, but if there's no issue with his competence and there's no issue with his conduct, then there's no issue. Nobody's in the business here of telling teachers how to behave, we're in the business of telling them how to behave, but not in the business of telling them how to think or how to behave in their private life if it's legal. And the British National Party, not that I'm an apologist for the British National Party, but they are a legal party. And if you want to join the British National Party, you're at liberty to do so, and at liberty to be active. That's your right as a citizen. However, once you go public with your private behaviour and your private beliefs, people will judge them, won't they? And that's what this man was doing. He was taking his private beliefs of the British National Party into the public arena by standing as a candidate. And now people will judge that, and that's what was happening. He's still at liberty to do it, but he has to take the consequences of going public with his private beliefs. So what that guy in Swindon said, keep your private life private, is a very important piece of advice, and I urge you to think about it and accept it. Hi everybody, my name is Alan Newland, and I've been in education for over 40 years now, both as a teacher in a primary school, as a head teacher, as a lecturer in teacher education, as an advisor to the Department for Education, and at the General Teaching Council for England. So I've decided to put my sessions online. I think these professionally recorded and edited sessions provide an excellent solution to the teaching and learning challenges we face in the coming months. They provide an innovative way of providing content to students and trainees that you can deliver at your convenience in the time that you choose. And it engages students, I think, in a way that keeps them interested and maintains their concentration levels. So if you're interested in accessing these videos, do get in touch with me through the contact details that are on screen now. I'll be very happy to answer any queries or questions that you have, and I look forward to talking to you.